Okay, so this is the document that I shared with you that is your demonstration of competency rubrics. So we've talked about these. I want to reiterate them, make sure you understand it. So the first row is what? The white row.
That's depending on your
Grade.
right out of the
Those are right out of the grade book, specific to the standard score. So whatever your standards were, and that pushed a grade, that number, whether it's a 3, a 4, or a 5, will automatically fill in on that row. Remember, you have to be at a 3, a 4, or a 5, or there's nothing that's going to go there. You're not proficient to those standards yet. Any questions on what that first white row is? Yes?
So it's like your highest score out of all of the rubrics?
Not your highest, it's an average of all of those.
Okay.
So when, for competency 1, when we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, roughly 10 to 11 standards, the score that you got on each of those will average to a competency score, and then that competency score is what transfers to that first row. Does that make sense? Excellent. Okay. The second row is the enduring concepts. Remember, we said that's what is your demonstration of taking it outside the class, whether it's for next year's classes, college classes, life in world outside of school. And remember, this is the question that you're focusing on. To what extent does this demonstration of competency reflect value over time, 5 or 10 years? Now we want to talk about the level 5. We want to push everything to the synthesis level because you all said that's where you want to end up. So my demonstration of competency synthesizes, and we said synthesis is bringing it all together, right? Synthesizes the skills, theories, principles, and or concepts, and explains how they are transferable beyond the classroom and applicable to social or professional settings. So when we talk skills, what did we say the skills are based off of? The rubrics, the standards that were part of that first line. Theories, principles, and concepts, what would those be?
Real world.
Well, I don't know that we'd go real world yet. But when we're talking about synthesizing my understanding of theories and principles and concepts in this class, how could I take those theories, principles, and concepts and use them outside of this class? So what would some of those theories, concepts, and principles be? Like things we've talked about that are more conceptual.
Be like analyzing a text.
Yeah, analyzing texts in general. It's a concept that we've learned how to do that skill. What are some other theories and things we've kind of talked about? Go ahead.
Writing.
Right. Totally thought you said
in
running.
general.
I'm like, running? So yeah, writing in general, our understanding of the fact that there are different ways to write for different audiences, things we need to take into consideration. Any of those rhetorical strategy pieces that we pulled from, all of those theory pieces, okay, any of that, how can I take my understanding and move it outside of the class? Making it applicable to social and professional settings. So what would social settings be versus professional settings?
social setting, be like
At a
with friends.
party.
Social settings, like at a party, friends, more casual, where a professional setting would be
Work
Like
or
job.
school.
jobs, work, school, something that's more professional.
Oh,
Can
dear,
somebody
did it again.
jiggle my mouse? That sounded funny.
I was laughing.
I need yeah.
Script.
So do you have any questions on the enduring concepts? Again, with our visual of the umbrella, the enduring concept is that actual taking it outside of the class, using it somewhere else, the transfer. So any question on the enduring concepts part? Okay, and then we'll look at the level 5 for the universal constructs or 21st century skills. The question you want to be addressing is, to what degree are those universal constructs below, we'll go over those, reflected in the demonstration of competency. So the universal constructs, critical thinking, where have we demonstrated that in class?
Everything.
Pretty much everything we've done, because at this level in high school, you're expected to analyze, which is a higher order thinking skill anyway. And then when you're pushing it further to the evaluative synthesizing level, you're definitely critically thinking, close reading, all of that analysis that you're doing of the texts. What about complex communication?
Our book like groups.
Your lit circle groups
Yeah.
where you were communicating with that small group?
Yep.
Other examples of complex communication?
Our
Large group discussions,
Papers.
writing the papers that we've done,
One-on-one.
one-on-one conversations you've had with peers or with me. So those are all examples of complex communication. What about creativity? Where have we demonstrated that?
Non-text.
The projects that we've done, the non-text representation we did, the Prezi that you created. We didn't have a whole lot of creativity because Iowa Core is pretty regimented, but there was a little bit of flexibility allowed. What about collaboration?
All our group talk.
Pretty much the group stuff we've done. What other collaborative works have we done that were not group related?
The argument of missing.
Why would you say that was collaborative?
Because it's.
I don't know what this
It works
means.
for you, I thought it worked for
How
missing.
do you feel it is?
Because you like put comments on it.
So yeah, your peer interaction. So you either have a collaboration with me with the comments that I made as you try to improve it, or even your peer editing is collaborative work with someone else to try and make it better. I didn't know what that was. Sorry.
Exactly what-
The interpretive dance wasn't working for me. Flexibility and adaptability.
Our
Redo it over and over.
Redoing our work to try to improve our levels of learning.
ability to learn new stuff.
Okay, the whole fact that you've never really approached literature from this rhetorical perspective. So learning that new stuff, being adaptable and flexible to that. And then the last universal construct is productivity and accountability.
Getting it done on time.
Getting your work done on time,
Staying on track.
staying on task, following the calendar, having conversations with me or shooting me emails if there were issues as why things were not going to get done on time. Those are all your demonstration of being accountable to your work and productive in your work. So, to what degree are these reflected in your demonstration of competency? So we want to move to a 5. So my demonstration of competency evaluates the necessity of important habits. This one is a little bit different because it's not really specific to what we did in class. It's more specific to how these skills are relevant outside of the class. And these are, even though we did do these in our projects and in our work, the focus is more on those by themselves and less on the projects we created to make those evident. Jessica?
So do you want us to like pick one or two and say that these are important and then learn how to do these and I can use them this way later on?
Yeah, you're basically going to demonstrate the transfer piece again, but you're going to be demonstrating the transfer with these universal skills. Or constructs. So if I'm evaluating the necessity of these important habits with strong connections between the construct and the content. So everything we just talked about, of how we demonstrated all of that in the content of the class, how am I going to take my ability to have complex communication based on what we did in class? How am I going to take my understanding of what we did in class and use it somewhere else outside of class? How am I going to take my understanding of flexibility and adaptability? I'll tell you what we did in class and how am I going to use that outside of class. So the key thing with the competencies is the handle of the umbrella, carrying it to somewhere else. What I want you to get out of the class most is that competency, not just the skill. Yes, I can write an argumentative paper. Well, that's one thing at that one time in your life. But the competency where I am communicating to acquire and express knowledge clearly, concisely, and logically. It doesn't matter what type of work I'm doing. That doesn't matter if I'm having a conversation, writing a paper, creating an interpretive dance. I'm totally going to go to that all the time.
I'd like to see
There
that.
always has to be a clear acquisition and expression of knowledge. These competencies that you got at the beginning, this is what you want to be demonstrating you understand and can use outside of this class. So it's a merging of the skills and standards we learned in class with the projects and putting it into a real world applicable situation of how can I take what I learned using these universal constructs and carry it away to use somewhere else.
So you're doing it for all of the constructs, or just like a certain amount?
I would do it for all of the constructs. Yeah, there's only, what, 6? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Look at that.
Where'd
So
you
like,
go?
Who knew?
Six
Do you want
for
us to do like a social example and a professional example for each
Do you
one?
need to give both? Good question. Applicable to social or professional. So you get an option. That's a good question.
you want us to do all 6 for each of the 3 competencies?
Yes. Now, are you freaking out a little bit? Because I'm asking you to do all 6 for each of the 3. Do you remember when we went over each of these 3 and we created our list, and we'll go over that here in a minute, and we created our list of how I could possibly do this, how I could possibly demonstrate this? You remember that conversation? We didn't even know at that time what any of this was. We didn't even know what the skills were we were going to learn in class. All we knew were the competencies. So here's the competency. How might I show you I can do that? So what do you remember when we were coming up with our list of things for competency 1, 2, and 3? And I think Isabel's the one who brought it up. Do you remember it?
Did I? Where we were like writing, and then some people had like, I would use this to apply to college.
Right?
And then like other people had, I would use this to apply to college by doing this, this, and this.
Right?
You told us the first one would be a 3, I thought it would be a no attempt.
So you're looking at how to make it deeper and more in-depth. It is giving more detail. But do you remember when we made our list, that when we looked at list number 1 versus list number 2 versus list number 3,
You can combine.
there was a lot of repetition, yeah. And we came up with the idea that, well, can't I do one demonstration of competency and really address multiple competencies? Yes, you absolutely can. But what is the difference in, what's the thing I guess I would have to include if I'm going to do one demonstration of competency that's going to hit all 3 competencies? What do I have to make sure I'm addressing?
All the competencies.
What the competencies are. Because the skills are pretty much set as relatively the same, not specifically. The universal constructs are set, but the competencies are different. So I would need to make sure that I'm specifically addressing that competency. So the first one is acquiring, expressing knowledge. The second one is collaborating and creating. And the third one is motivating and inspiring. They're different, similar, but what you would have to make sure you're doing in your demonstration is making sure you're specifically identifying which competency you are referencing. So if that means you want to do 3 different demonstrations, that's fine. If you want to do one and make sure you're really hitting all 3 of them, that's going to be a much larger demonstration, of course. Or if you want to like smush these 2 together and do the one separately, it's totally up to you how you choose to demonstrate it. Jesse.
So if I'm like writing or talking to you, could I like, so competency 1, reasons 2, 3, and then at the end have all the universal like things that show how what I demonstrated like ties to it?
Well, but you want to do your universal constructs in relation to the competency. This rubric is for a competency. So if I'm going to try to lump this all together, I'm going to have to make sure that I'm addressing this in specific reference to each of the 3 competencies. If you're having a verbal conversation with me, I'm going to record it so that I can go back. Because when you're having this 10-minute conversation with me to address all of the things you need to address, I want to be able to go back and make sure that all the things that need assessed are being assessed. So I'm going to record that. If it's written, it's going to be a long document. So I should very easily be able to pinpoint where things are. It should not take me more than a day to get back to you as to whether you're competent or not. Now, a lot of you are probably asking, well, can I go back if I'm at a 4 and make it a 5? Not really. Okay? Where's my mouse jiggler?
Mouse jiggler.
Now, even though this is competency-based, and generally speaking, when you're looking at the skills, you can go back and redo and review and all that good stuff. This is like your final exam, so to speak, your final proof of competency. So you really need to come fully loaded, ready to go, having demonstrated whatever level you want to do. And I'm going to give you some examples, like I said. We didn't hash out an example for a 3, a 4, and a 5, but we can talk through those. But what I want you to make sure you're doing is the first attempt is your attempt. And you're going to bring it to whatever level you want to bring it. So plan to make sure you're doing a 5 if that's what you want. Now it's an average of the 3 scores. So if you come in with a 4 based on your skills, and then in your conversation with me, let's say you're doing a conversation for your demonstration, you analyze how you're going to use this. And in here, you're pushing to evaluation, and it's going to be an average of those 3 scores. So you want to make sure that you very specifically have each of these 2 evident, because the first one is already determined. So you're not ready to demonstrate your competency unless you're proficient. So those of you who are redoing and moving your proficiency levels, you can go back and change your proficiency levels after the fact. So let's say you go through everything and you're ready to give your demonstration of proficiency, you're coming in at a 4. You can go back and redo those projects after the fact. But this part you can't redo after the fact.